The mirror reflected her perfect face as she applied the final touch of lipstick. Neera Harvin looked like she belonged on magazine covers, not in our cramped bathroom with its peeling wallpaper and ancient fixtures. She'd been getting ready for 2 hours, transforming herself into someone I barely recognized. "Can you leave before my friends arrive? I don't want them to know about you," she said, not even glancing at me in the reflection. The words hit like a slap. I stood there in the doorway, watching her check her teeth for lipstick smudges, completely casual about dismissing me from my own home. 3 years together, and I was something to hide. I didn't answer. What was there to say? I picked up my jacket from the bed, walked through our living room with its mismatched furniture and the couch we'd bought together at a thrift store, and headed for the door. The sound of her heels clicking on the hardwood followed me, but she didn't call out, didn't take it back. The evening air was crisp as I walked down Maple Street, past Mrs. Krantz's house where she was watering her garden despite the approaching darkness. She waved and I managed a nod. 2 blocks away, I turned my phone back on. My name is Hayes Relin, and I manage the Cedar Bay Marina. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps me near the water. I've always been good at fixing things: boats, engines, problems. Tonight, I realized I had a different kind of problem that needed fixing. I sat on a bench overlooking the harbor, watching the boats bob in their slips. The marina was quiet except for the gentle lapping of waves against the hulls. This place had always been my sanctuary, where everything made sense. Unlike my relationship with Neera, my first move was precise. I pulled out my phone and typed a simple message. "We're done. Don't contact me again." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I got methodical. I removed myself from every shared digital space we inhabited. Our shared calendar where she scheduled our life around her convenience, the cloud photo album where she stored pictures for her social media empire, the delivery address for her endless online shopping, and most importantly, the event invites I had paid for over the past month. But I didn't just remove myself. I did something she never expected. Neera had been bragging to her friends about an exclusive rooftop party next weekend. She'd shown me the invitation on her phone, talking about how impressed everyone would be. What she didn't know was that I had paid for those invitations: my credit card, my confirmation number, my name on the guest list. I called the venue. "Cedar Bay Events, this is Amanda." "Hi, this is Hayes Relin. I have a reservation for next Saturday's rooftop event. I need to make some changes to the guest list." "Of course, Mr. Relin. What changes would you like to make?" "I need to reassign the primary guest name from Neera Harvin to Hayes Relin, and I'd like to add a note that Ms. Harvin is no longer authorized to make changes to this reservation." "I can certainly do that. Is there anything else?" "Yes. Could you send a confirmation email to the group address? I want to make sure everyone has the updated information." "Absolutely. You should receive that within a few minutes." I hung up and waited. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Not from the venue, but from Neera. "What the hell, Hayes? We need to talk. You're being ridiculous." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the group chat she'd forgotten I was part of, her inner circle of friends who planned these social gatherings. The confirmation email from Cedar Bay Events had already arrived. I forwarded it to the group with a simple message: "Guest list updated. See you all Saturday." The responses came fast. "Wait, Hayes is coming to girls' night? I thought this was just us? Neera, what's going on?" My phone started ringing. Neera's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message. "Hayes, you're being completely unreasonable. It was just girls' night. You know how it is. Call me back so we can talk about this like adults." Like adults. Rich coming from someone who'd just asked me to hide like a shameful secret. I walked back toward home, taking my time. The house was dark when I arrived. Neera had left for her girls' night. I could see her car wasn't in the driveway. Good. I needed time to think. Inside, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The group chat was exploding with messages. Neera was trying to do damage control, claiming there had been a misunderstanding with the reservations. Her friends weren't buying it. "But Hayes paid for the party?" one of them wrote. "Why would you tell him not to come to something he organized?" asked another. "This is so awkward. Should we cancel?" Neera's responses became increasingly frantic. She tried calling the venue, but they told her exactly what I'd instructed them to say. Changes were locked, and the guest list was final. Only the primary account holder could make modifications. That's when she called me again. This time, I answered. "Hayes, what have you done?" "Nothing you didn't do first. This is insane. You're embarrassing me in front of my friends." "I'm not doing anything. I just made sure the person who paid for the party was properly listed as the host." "You know that's not how this works. It was supposed to be my thing. Your thing. Paid for with my money. But I wasn't supposed to exist when your friends arrived." There was silence on the other end. I could hear music and laughter in the background. She was already at whatever bar they'd chosen for the pre-party gathering. "Look, I made a mistake, okay? I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You meant exactly what you said, Neera. You wanted me gone so your friends wouldn't know about me. Mission accomplished. Hayes, please, let's just talk about this tomorrow when we've both calmed down." "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice." I hung up and turned off my phone. The house felt different now, quieter, but not in a peaceful way. More like the silence before a storm. I walked through the rooms we'd shared, seeing them with new eyes. The photos on the walls were mostly of her, taken for her Instagram account. The furniture we'd picked out together suddenly looked like props in someone else's life. In the bedroom, her makeup was still scattered across the dresser. Expensive bottles and compacts I'd helped pay for, all part of the image she cultivated online. Neera had over 10,000 followers who saw her as some kind of lifestyle guru, posting about her perfect relationship and perfect life. Perfect, except for the part where she was ashamed of the man who made it all possible. I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about the past few months. The signs had been there. The way she'd started going out more without me, the phone calls she'd take in the other room, the sudden interest in girls' nights that happened every weekend. I'd chalked it up to her needing space, her wanting to maintain her friendships. Now I realized it was something else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text message. I'd turned it back on without thinking. "The venue won't change anything. My friends think I'm a liar. Are you happy now?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed my response. "You didn't want your friends to know about me. Now they do." I hit send and turned the phone off again. The next morning brought rain and the sound of Neera's key in the front door. I was already dressed and drinking coffee in the kitchen when she walked in, still wearing last night's outfit, but looking considerably less polished. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and her designer dress wrinkled. "We need to talk," she announced, dropping her purse on the counter with more force than necessary. "No, we don't." "Hayes, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child." I set down my coffee mug and really looked at her. 3 years of my life invested in this woman. 3 years of believing we were building something together. The morning light streaming through the kitchen window was unforgiving, highlighting the harsh lines around her mouth, the calculating look in her eyes that I'd somehow missed before. "Tell me about Brandon Kell," I said quietly. The color drained from her face. "What about him?" "You tell me. He's been liking every single one of your Instagram posts for the past 2 months, always the first comment, always something just a little too personal for a casual friend. We work in the same industry, real estate networking. You know how it is. Since when are you in real estate?" She fumbled for an answer, her usual quick wit abandoning her. "I've been thinking about getting my license. Brandon's been mentoring me." "Mentoring? Is that what we're calling it? Hayes, you're being paranoid." I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. "Let's see. Looking gorgeous as always, babe. That was his comment on your photo from last Tuesday, the one you took while I was at work. I scrolled down. And here, can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Posted under the picture you took getting ready for girls' night 3 weeks ago. Neera's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Those are just, he comments on everyone's stuff. It doesn't mean anything. Everyone calls their networking contacts babe. You're twisting everything. Am I? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked street. Mrs. Krantz was already out checking her mail, probably hoping to catch some neighborhood drama. She was about to get more than she bargained for. I checked our phone records, Neera. Funny thing about family plans, the account holder gets to see all the call logs. Guess whose number shows up 47 times in the past month? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. When I turned around, Neera was staring at the floor, her defiant posture crumbling. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Brandon and we've been talking about business opportunities. He thinks I have potential. What kind of potential requires daily phone calls and Instagram flirting? You don't understand. You've never understood what I'm trying to build here. This social media thing, it's not just vanity. It's a business. Brandon gets that. And I don't? You work at a marina, Hayes. You smell like fish and motor oil half the time. That's not exactly the image I'm trying to project. There it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months. I wasn't good enough for her brand, her image, her aspirations. I was useful for paying bills and providing stability, but I was an embarrassment when it came to her real life. So, Brandon is more your speed? He understands my goals. He has connections, resources. He's building something important. With you. Maybe. I don't know yet. We're exploring possibilities. While living in my house, using my money to fund your lifestyle, sleeping in my bed. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Neera? Explain it to me like I'm stupid. She straightened up, some of her old fire returning. You want the truth? Fine. Brandon makes me feel like I matter, like I'm worth investing in. When I'm with him, I feel like I could actually become someone important instead of just the girlfriend of a marina manager. The words stung, but they also clarified everything. This wasn't about love or commitment or building a life together. This was about what I could provide versus what Brandon could provide. I was the safe choice, the steady paycheck, the reliable backup plan. He was the upgrade she'd been shopping for. I see. Hayes, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. But it did happen. Nothing physical has happened. We're just talking about possibilities. I almost laughed. Nothing physical, just emotional infidelity, financial planning for a future that doesn't include me, and asking me to hide so your friends don't know about me. But nothing physical, so that makes it okay. That's not fair. You know what's not fair, Neera? 3 years of believing we were partners. 3 years of supporting your dreams, paying for your lifestyle, listening to your plans for our future. 3 years of thinking I mattered to you. You do matter. Not enough to include me in your real life. Not enough to defend me to your friends. Not enough to choose me over Brandon's possibilities. She was crying now, but I couldn't tell if the tears were genuine or just another manipulation tactic. Neera had always been good at crying when she needed something. What do you want me to do? Nothing. You've already done enough. Hayes, please, can't we work through this? Work through what? You've made your choice. You want Brandon and his connections and his resources and his understanding of your goals. Go get them. But what about us? What about everything we've built? I looked around the kitchen, at the table we'd bought at a yard sale, the mismatched chairs we'd collected over time, the coffee maker I'd given her for her birthday. Everything we'd built was small, modest, real. None of it fit the image she was trying to create. We built a life that was never good enough for you. I'm done pretending that's going to change. My phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. but something made me answer. Hayes, this is Amanda from Cedar Bay Events. I wanted to follow up about Saturday's party. We've had several calls from someone claiming to be authorized to make changes, but our records show you as the primary contact. I looked at Neera, whose face had gone pale again. What kind of changes? Cancellation requests, guest list modifications, even a request to change the venue entirely. I wanted to confirm these with you directly. No changes. The event proceeds as planned with the current guest list. Perfect. We'll see you Saturday evening. I hung up and met Neera's desperate gaze. Still exploring possibilities with Brandon? Hayes, you have to cancel that party. I can't show up there now. Everyone will be asking questions I can't answer. Then don't show up. Those are my friends. Are they? Because from what I saw in the group chat, they seem pretty confused about why you were lying to them. I wasn't lying. I simplified things. You told them I was working late and couldn't make it. You've been telling them that for months. Meanwhile, you're planning a future with Brandon and asking me to hide when your friends come over. I was trying to avoid drama. Well, congratulations. You've created plenty of drama instead. Neera slumped into one of the mismatched chairs, her perfect posture finally abandoning her. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore. Hayes, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. I'll end things with Brandon. I'll tell my friends the truth. We can start over. Start over? You mean go back to being your dirty little secret? Go back to funding your lifestyle while you shop for someone better? Go back to pretending I don't see the way you look at me like I'm holding you back? I never said you were holding me back. You didn't have to say it. It's been written all over your face for months. I walked to the front door and picked up my keys. I'm going to work. When I get home tonight, I want you gone. Gone? Hayes, this is my home too. Check the lease, my name, my deposit, my credit approval. You've been a guest here, just like you've been a guest in my life. You can't just throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. I'm declining to continue hosting you. There's a difference. I opened the door and stepped out into the rain. Behind me, I could hear Neera calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Mrs. Krantz was still in her yard, now openly staring at our house. I waved to her as I got in my truck. The drive to the marina gave me time to think. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, I had a plan. The marina office was quiet except for the sound of rain drumming on the metal roof. I sat at my desk, staring at the computer screen, but my mind was elsewhere. My phone had been buzzing all morning with texts from Neera, each one more desperate than the last. Please don't do this. We can work it out. I'll explain everything to my friends. I ended things with Brandon. That last one made me laugh out loud. Ended things with Brandon. As if there had been things to end. As if the past month of secret phone calls and flirtatious comments and planning a future behind my back could be dismissed so easily. My friend Mick knocked on the office door and stuck his head in. You look like someone stole your boat and sold it for scrap. Something like that. Mick had worked security at various places around town before landing a part-time gig here at the marina. He was the kind of guy who noticed everything and forgot nothing, which made him good at his job and better as a friend. Want to talk about it? Neera and I are done. About time. I looked up, surprised by his bluntness. About time? Hayes, she's been treating you like hired help for months, always checking her phone when you're talking, always making plans that don't include you, always acting like she's doing you a favor by being with you. You noticed that? Everyone noticed. We just figured you'd work it out eventually. Mick sat down in the chair across from my desk, his weathered face serious. What finally did it? I told him about the previous night, the dismissal, the discovery about Brandon, the morning confrontation. Mick listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head. So what's your next move? She's supposed to be gone when I get home tonight. You think she'll actually leave? I don't know, but I'm not backing down. Mick was quiet for a moment, then leaned forward. You know, I might have some information that could help you understand what you're dealing with. What kind of information? Brandon Kell. I know that name. He's been sniffing around the waterfront properties lately, trying to buy up marina slips for some development project. Real smooth talker, lots of promises about bringing upscale tourism to the area. And he's got a reputation for making big promises he can't keep. There's talk that his last development project in Portsmouth fell through because he couldn't secure proper financing, left a bunch of investors holding worthless contracts. This was news to me. How do you know all this? I keep my ears open. Harbor communities are small. Word travels fast when someone's trying to change things. So Brandon's not as successful as he pretends to be? Let's just say his lifestyle might be more leverage than it appears. Guys like that, they're always one deal away from either making it big or losing everything. I thought about Neera's fascination with Brandon's resources and connections. If Mick was right, she might be betting on the wrong horse. There's something else, Mick continued. I saw them together last week, Brandon and your girl. They were having lunch at that fancy place downtown, the one with the outdoor seating that overlooks the harbor. When last week? Tuesday afternoon, around 1 o'clock. She was dressed up, he was showing her something on his phone. Looked pretty cozy for a business meeting. Tuesday afternoon, the same day she'd posted that Instagram photo, the one Brandon had commented on. The same day she'd told me she was having lunch with her friend Allie to discuss a potential collaboration. Another lie in a growing collection. I appreciate you telling me this. Just thought you should know what you're dealing with. Guys like Brandon, they're users. They find people who can give them something they need and they take it. When they're done, they move on. What could Neera give him? Think about it. She's got 10,000 Instagram followers, right? All local people who trust her recommendations. That's worth something to a guy trying to build buzz around a development project. The pieces were starting to fit together. Neera's sudden interest in real estate, Brandon's mentorship, the business opportunities she'd mentioned. She wasn't just having an affair, she was being recruited. Mick, do you think you could find out more about Brandon's financial situation? Probably. Why? Because I think Neera's about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between appearance and reality. My phone buzzed with another text from Neera. This one was different from the others. Hayes, I need to get my things. I'll come by around 6 when you're home from work. We need to discuss logistics. Logistics. Even now she was trying to control the narrative, make it sound like a business transaction instead of the end of a relationship. I texted back, fine, be quick. The rest of the day dragged by. I tried to focus on work. There were boats to service, slip assignments to manage, vendor invoices to process, but my mind kept wandering. By 5:30, I was ready to head home and face whatever drama Neera had planned. The house was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Neera's car wasn't in the driveway yet, which gave me a few minutes to prepare. I walked through the rooms, mentally cataloging what belonged to her versus what we'd bought together. It was going to be complicated. She arrived at 6 sharp, driving a car I didn't recognize. Not her usual compact sedan, but a sleek silver BMW that looked expensive. Through the windshield, I could see someone in the passenger seat. Brandon Kell stepped out of the driver's side. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident swagger that came from years of getting what he wanted. His hair was perfectly styled, his clothes looked like they cost more than I made in a month, and his smile was the practiced charm of a professional salesman. Neera got out of the passenger side, looking nervous but determined. She'd changed clothes since the morning, trading her wrinkled dress for a crisp business outfit that made her look like she was going to a job interview. I met them at the front door. Hayes, this is Brandon. Brandon, this is Hayes. Brandon extended his hand with that practiced smile. Good to finally meet you, man. Neera's told me a lot about you. I didn't take his hand. I'm sure she has. The smile faltered slightly, but Brandon recovered quickly. Look, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to be here to make sure everything stays civil. Neera's pretty upset about how things went down. Is she? We all want this to be as smooth as possible. We? Neera stepped forward. Hayes, Brandon offered to help me move my things. I thought it would be easier if we could get everything done quickly. How considerate. I stepped aside and let them into the house. Brandon looked around with the appraising eye of someone who was used to evaluating property values. I could see him taking mental notes, the outdated fixtures, the worn furniture, the general air of making do with what we could afford. Nice place, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. It serves its purpose. Neera headed toward the bedroom, but I stopped her. Before you start packing, we need to discuss those logistics you mentioned. What kind of logistics? The credit cards you've been using, the ones attached to my accounts. Her face went pale. Hayes, those are for emergencies. Like lunch dates with Brandon? Brandon cleared his throat. Maybe I should wait outside. No, stay, I said. This concerns you too. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. Let's see. Tuesday lunch at Harbor View Restaurant, $87. Wednesday shopping at that boutique downtown, $230. Thursday dinner at the steakhouse, $153. Those were business expenses, Neera said quickly. Business expenses for what business? Brandon's been teaching me about real estate investment. Those were working meals. Working meals! Is that what we're calling them? Brandon stepped forward, his salesman instincts kicking in. Hayes, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Neera and I have been discussing a legitimate business opportunity. Nothing inappropriate has happened. Define inappropriate. We're exploring a partnership. Neera has a strong social media presence, and I have development projects that could benefit from that kind of marketing reach. And this partnership requires daily phone calls and romantic Instagram comments? Brandon's smile became strained. I'm a friendly guy. Maybe my communication style came across wrong. Your communication style includes calling my girlfriend babe and telling her you can't wait to see her? That's just how I talk to people. All people, or just the ones you're trying to recruit for your business opportunities? The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Neera looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Hayes, can we just focus on getting my things? We can discuss the financial stuff later. No, let's discuss it now. Because I'm curious about something, Brandon. What's that? How exactly does this partnership work? Neera promotes your developments on her Instagram, and you give her what in return? Well, there would be financial compensation, of course, plus equity participation in certain projects. Equity participation. That sounds impressive. What kind of equity are we talking about? Brandon's confidence was starting to crack. The details are still being worked out. But you've got the capital lined up for these developments? Financing is in progress. In progress. So you don't actually have the money yet. Real estate development is a complex process. There are multiple funding sources, various approval stages. But right now, today, you don't have the money to start any developments. Brandon's jaw tightened. I don't think my financial situation is any of your business. It becomes my business when you're using my girlfriend and my credit cards to fund your lifestyle while you wait for your financing to come through. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Brandon's face flushed red, and I could see him struggling to maintain his composure. That's completely out of line. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been using Neera to subsidize your expenses while you chase funding for projects that may or may not exist. Hayes, stop, Neera said. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Tell me, Neera, has Brandon ever paid for any of these business meals? Or have they all gone on my credit card? The silence was answer enough. And these business opportunities, has he shown you contracts, financial projections, proof of funding, or just promises and possibilities? More silence. Brandon straightened his shoulders, trying to regain control of the situation. I don't have to listen to this. Neera, get your things. We're leaving. Actually, I said, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made the harbor look like a postcard. I stood on the marina dock, watching the morning boats head out for the day, and checked my phone for what felt like the 100th time. The group chat had been quiet since Thursday, when Neera had finally stopped trying to convince her friends that the whole situation was a misunderstanding. Mick found me there around noon, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the grin of someone who had interesting news to share. You're going to want to hear this, he said, handing me one of the cups. What did you find out? Brandon Kell is in more trouble than we thought. I talked to my buddy who works at the bank downtown. Apparently Brandon's been juggling loan payments for months. His credit cards are maxed out. He's behind on his car payments, and that fancy apartment he's been showing off, he's 3 months behind on rent. So he really is broke. Worse than broke. He's been running a shell game, using new credit to pay old debts, always staying one step ahead of the collectors. The development projects he's been talking about? Pure fantasy. He doesn't have the capital, the permits, or the partnerships he's been claiming. I thought about Neera, who had spent the past week posting cryptic Instagram stories about new opportunities and exciting changes. She had no idea she'd tied herself to a sinking ship. There's more, Mick continued. Brandon's been pulling this same routine in other towns, Portsmouth, Kennebunkport, Bar Harbor. He shows up, starts talking about development opportunities, gets cozy with local influencers and small business owners, uses their connections and resources to maintain his lifestyle, then disappears when the bills come due. He's a con artist. A sophisticated one, but yeah. And your girl just became his latest mark. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I found a message from Neera using a different phone. Hayes, we need to talk. Something's wrong with Brandon. Can you meet me somewhere private? I showed the message to Mick, who whistled low. Sounds like she's figuring it out. Should I respond? That's up to you. But remember, she made her choice. She picked him over you, picked his promises over your reality. Now she's dealing with the consequences. I thought about it for a long moment, then typed back, We have nothing to discuss. You made your decision. The response came quickly. Please, I think I'm in trouble. Then call the police. Hayes, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. I stared at the message, feeling a mix of anger and something that might have been pity. 3 days ago, she'd been telling me how Brandon understood her goals better than I ever could. Now she was asking for help. Too little, too late, I typed, then put the phone away. Cold, Mick said, but he was still grinning. She wanted Brandon's world. Now she's got it. The afternoon passed quietly. I tried to focus on marina business, but my mind kept wandering to tonight's party. The event I'd paid for, the guest list that still included all of Neera's friends, the confrontation that was inevitable. Around 4 o'clock, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Allie's name, one of Neera's closest friends and the biggest gossip in their social circle. Hayes, this is Allie. We need to talk. About what? About tonight, about Neera, about this whole mess. I'm not sure what there is to discuss. Look, I know things got weird with the whole party situation, but we're all confused about what's really going on. Neera's been acting strange all week, and now she's saying she can't come tonight because of some emergency. What kind of emergency? She won't say. But Hayes, there's something you should know. That guy Brandon? He's been asking weird questions about you, about your job, your finances, your property. It felt like he was, I don't know, investigating you or something. This was news. What kind of questions? Like whether you owned the house you live in, whether the marina job paid well, whether you had any investments or savings. Really personal stuff that seemed inappropriate for someone who barely knows you. And you told him what? Nothing. It creeped me out, so I changed the subject. But Hayes, I think Neera might be in over her head with this guy. That's her problem now. Is it, though? Because if she's in trouble, it reflects on all of us. We're her friends. People associate us with her choices. I could hear the real concern in Ali's voice. Not concern for Neera's well-being, but concern for how this drama might affect their social circle's reputation. These people really were as shallow as I'd suspected. What do you want from me, Ali? Come to the party tonight. Let everyone see that you're the reasonable one in this situation. Show them that you're not some controlling guy who threw his girlfriend out for no reason. Why would I care what they think? Because Neera's been telling people a very different version of this story. She's saying you became jealous and possessive, that you tried to isolate her from her friends, that you threatened Brandon when you found out they were working together. The anger that had been simmering all week suddenly boiled over. She said what? Hayes, I don't believe her version. None of us do, really. But she's been posting these vague social media updates about toxic relationships and finding the strength to leave. People who don't know you might get the wrong impression. Let me guess, she's painting herself as the victim. Pretty much. Look, just come tonight. Bring Mick if you want backup. Let people see the real story. I thought about it. The party I'd paid for, the friends who were now hearing lies about me, the opportunity to set the record straight. I'll be there. Good. And Hayes, bring receipts. If you're going to tell your side of the story, bring proof. After I hung up, I spent an hour gathering documentation. Credit card statements showing Neera's expenses, screenshots of her text messages, photos of Brandon's Instagram comments, bank records showing who actually paid for what. If Neera wanted to play the victim, I'd give everyone the evidence they needed to see through her performance. Mick agreed to come with me, partly for moral support and partly because he was curious to see how the drama would unfold. We arrived at Cedar Bay Events just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the harbor. The rooftop venue was exactly as advertised, upscale, sophisticated, with stunning views of the water. About 30 people were already there, mostly Neera's social circle, and a few faces I didn't recognize. Everyone was dressed to impress, holding cocktails and making the kind of small talk that looked better on Instagram than it sounded in real life. Ali spotted me immediately and hurried over. I'm so glad you came. Everyone's been asking questions. What kind of questions? About where Neera is, about what really happened between you two, about whether the rumors are true. What rumors? That she left you for some rich developer who's been promising to make her famous. I looked around the party, noting the curious glances and whispered conversations. These people lived for drama, and I was about to give them more than they'd bargained for. Where should we start? Ali led me to the center of the rooftop, where a small crowd had gathered around the bar. Conversations stopped as people noticed my arrival. I could feel the weight of their attention, the anticipation of gossip about to be revealed. Everyone, Ali announced. Hayes is here to clear up some confusion about recent events. A woman named Jordan stepped forward. She was one of Neera's work colleagues, someone I'd met at a few previous gatherings. Hayes, we've been hearing some concerning things. Is it true that you and Neera broke up? Yes. And is it true that you threw her out of your house? I asked her to leave after I discovered she was having an affair. A murmur went through the crowd. Someone pulled out their phone, probably to start recording. In this social media world, everything was content. But Neera said you became jealous of her business relationship with Brandon, Jordan continued. She said you couldn't handle her success. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved all the evidence. Let me show you what actually happened. For the next 20 minutes, I laid out the timeline. The secret phone calls, the Instagram flirting, the lies about business meetings, the credit card expenses for romantic dinners. I showed them screenshots, bank statements, and call logs. I let the evidence speak for itself. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the party. People abandoned their conversations to listen to the real story. Someone had definitely started recording, and I could see the footage being shared in real time as the drama unfolded. So, Brandon was using Neera to subsidize his lifestyle while promising her business opportunities that don't exist? Allie asked. That's what it looks like. And she was using your money to pay for their dates? Check the credit card statements. Jordan shook her head in disgust. I can't believe she lied to us about all of this. Where is she tonight? Someone called out. Good question, I said. She texted me earlier saying she was in trouble and needed help, but 3 days ago she was telling me how Brandon understood her better than I ever could. My phone buzzed with a text message. When I looked at it, I saw it was from Brandon's number. Hayes, this is Neera. Brandon took my phone. I'm at his apartment and he won't let me leave. He's been lying about everything. Please help me. I showed the message to Mick, who frowned. Could be legitimate, could also be manipulation. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. But even as I said it, I felt a nagging sense of responsibility. Whatever Neera had done, if she was genuinely in danger, I couldn't just ignore it. I was about to respond when another message came through. Never mind. Figured it out myself. Enjoy your party. Then, a few seconds later, hope it was worth it. The messages felt off, like they weren't really from Neera. The tone was wrong, the phrasing too casual for someone who was supposedly trapped and scared. Something's not right, I told Mick. What do you mean? Those messages, they don't sound like her. Before Mick could respond, Jordan's phone started buzzing with notifications. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. Oh my God. You guys need to see this. She held up her phone, showing Neera's Instagram story. It was a video, clearly shot in secret, showing Brandon pacing around what looked like an expensive apartment while talking angrily on the phone. No, I don't care what you said before. Brandon's voice came through the phone's speaker. The deal is off. I'm not paying anything back until my projects get funded. The video continued, showing Brandon throwing papers around and cursing about creditors and lawyers. In the background, partially visible, was Neera sitting on a couch looking scared and confused. She's live streaming this, Jordan said. Look at the viewer count. The number was climbing rapidly as word spread. Hundreds of people were watching Brandon's meltdown in real time, seeing him for what he really was, a desperate con artist whose carefully constructed facade was crumbling. This is incredible, Allie said, her influencer instincts taking over. This is going to destroy his reputation completely. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was definitely from Neera. Hayes, I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I'm streaming this so people know the truth about Brandon. I'm going to find my own way home. I stared at the message, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also something that might have been sadness for the relationship we'd lost, the trust that had been broken, the future that would never happen. So what now? Mick asked. I looked around the party, at the faces illuminated by phone screens as everyone watched Neera's live stream, at the evidence of Brandon's deception spreading through social media in real time, at the conclusion of a drama that had consumed my life for the past week. Now I go home, I said, alone. The live stream had over 2,000 viewers when Brandon finally noticed what was happening. Through Neera's phone camera, we watched him spot her recording and lunge forward, his face contorted with rage. The video went black, but the audio continued for another 30 seconds, shouting, the sound of something breaking, then silence. The party had transformed into something resembling a war room, with everyone clustered around phones and tablets, refreshing social media feeds and sharing screenshots. Allie was already posting commentary on her own Instagram story, positioning herself as the friend who had always suspected something was off about Brandon. Should we call the police? Jordan asked, but she was still filming everything, clearly more interested in content than actual concern. I already did, Mick said, holding up his phone. Told them there might be a domestic disturbance at Brandon's address. I felt a grudging respect for my friend's practical thinking, even as I wrestled with my own conflicted feelings. Whatever else Neera had done, she didn't deserve to be trapped with an increasingly desperate con artist. My phone rang. Neera's name appeared on the screen. Hayes? Her voice was shaky, but she sounded unharmed. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm outside his building. Brandon locked himself in his apartment after he realized the video had gone viral. Where are you going to go? There was a long pause. I don't know. I can't go back to our house, your house. I don't have anywhere else. The party crowd had gone quiet, obviously listening to my side of the conversation. I could feel their anticipation, waiting to see how this final act would play out. That's not my problem anymore, Neera. I know I don't have any right to ask for help. But Hayes, I need you to know that I understand now. Everything you said about Brandon, about what I was doing to us, about the choices I made, you were right about all of it. Being right doesn't fix anything. I know that too. Another pause, longer this time. In the background, I could hear sirens, probably the police responding to Mick's call. Hayes, can I ask you one question? What? Did you know? When you set up tonight's party, when you made sure my friends would see the truth about everything, did you know it would end like this? I thought about the past week, about the careful way I documented evidence and preserved receipts, about the strategic timing of revelations and the methodical dismantling of her lies. Had I known it would end with Brandon's public meltdown and Neera's desperate live stream? No. But had I hoped for some kind of reckoning, some moment when the truth would be impossible to deny? I knew you'd made your choice, I said finally. I just made sure everyone else knew it too. The police are here now, she said. They want to talk to me about what happened upstairs. Tell them the truth, for once. Hayes? What? I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it. The line went quiet. After a moment, I realized she'd hung up. I looked around the party, at the faces still glowing with the excitement of witnessed drama, at the phones still recording and streaming and sharing. These people would be talking about tonight for months, turning it into the kind of story that got better with each retelling. So that's it? Allie asked. It's really over? It was over a week ago. Tonight was just the cleanup. Jordan was already typing furiously on her phone, probably crafting the perfect social media post about the evening's events. This is going to be everywhere by tomorrow. Brandon's reputation is completely ruined. Good, I said. Maybe the next person he tries to con will do a background check first. Mick appeared at my elbow with a fresh drink. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. Any regrets? I considered the question. A week ago, I'd thought Neera and I were building something together. Tonight, I'd watched her destroy herself on live stream while her friends turned it into entertainment. The relationship I'd mourned was revealed to have been an illusion, a performance that had fooled me more than anyone else. No, I said. No regrets. The party was winding down now, with people starting to leave in small groups, their phones still buzzing with notifications as the story spread across social media. Several people approached me on their way out, offering condolences or congratulations. It was hard to tell which. You're better off without her, one of them said. She never deserved you anyway, said another. Brandon got what he deserved, added a third. Their comments felt hollow, like lines from a script they'd rehearsed for exactly this type of social drama. These people didn't really know me or Neera or Brandon. We were just characters in their entertainment, players in a story they could share and discuss and analyze. But maybe that was fitting. Maybe Neera had been right about one thing. Image was everything in her world. Tonight, the image she'd carefully constructed had shattered completely, broadcast live to an audience that would remember her not as an aspirational lifestyle influencer, but as the woman who got conned by a fake developer and betrayed the man who'd supported her dreams. Allie was one of the last to leave. Hayes, I want you to know that most of us suspected something was wrong. The way she'd been talking about you lately, the way she'd been acting, it didn't add up. But you didn't say anything. It wasn't our place. Relationship drama is complicated. Is that what this was? Relationship drama? She had the grace to look embarrassed. You know what I mean. I do. And that's exactly the problem. After everyone left, Mick and I sat on the rooftop overlooking the harbor. The lights of the marina twinkled below us, and the sound of water against the docks carried up through the evening air. So what happens now? Mick asked. Now I go back to my life. The real one, not the performance version. Think you'll hear from her again? Probably. She'll need time to figure out her next move, and she'll want to test whether I might take her back. And will you? I thought about the woman I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, the one who'd seemed genuine and warm and interested in building something real together. Then I thought about the woman who'd dismissed me in front of her friends, who'd lied about business meetings while planning her exit strategy, who'd asked me to hide so her friends wouldn't know about me. That person doesn't exist anymore, I said. Maybe she never did. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I found a message that was clearly from Neera, probably using a friend's phone. The police took a statement and let me go. Brandon's being held for questioning about some financial fraud charges. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed you to know that I understand what I lost. You were the best thing in my life, and I threw it away for promises that were never real. I showed the message to Mick, who shook his head. Even now, she's trying to control the narrative. What do you mean? Look at the language. I understand what I lost. You were the best thing in my life. She's not really apologizing for what she did. She's trying to make you feel sorry for her. He was right. Even in her supposed moment of clarity, Neera was still performing, still trying to manage the story, still looking for an angle that might work in her favor. I deleted the message without responding. Come on, I said, standing up. Let's get out of here. We took the elevator down to the parking garage where my truck sat next to Mick's motorcycle. The evening air was cool and clean, carrying the salt smell of the ocean and the promise of autumn weather ahead. You want to grab a drink somewhere? Mick asked. Celebrate your freedom? Thanks, but I think I want to go home. See what it feels like to have the place to myself. Fair enough, but Hayes? Yeah? You did the right thing, all of it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I drove home through the quiet streets of Cedar Bay, past the houses where normal people lived normal lives, without the constant pressure of social media performance and status anxiety. Mrs. Krantz's porch light was on, and I could see her silhouette in the window, probably reading or watching television. The house felt different when I walked in. Not empty exactly, but peaceful in a way it hadn't been for months. No tension in the air, no sense of walking on eggshells, no feeling like I was constantly being evaluated and found wanting. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, curious to see how the evening's events were playing out online. Neera's live stream had been shared hundreds of times, with commentary ranging from shocked to supportive to gleefully malicious. Brandon's name was already being connected to similar scams in other cities, with victims coming forward to share their own stories. But what struck me most was how quickly the narrative had shifted. A week ago, Neera had been positioning herself as the victim of a controlling boyfriend. Tonight, the story was about a naive woman who'd been manipulated by a con artist while betraying the man who'd supported her. Both versions were too simple, of course. The truth was more complicated, messier, harder to fit into the neat categories that social media demanded. But at least this version was closer to reality. My phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. I know you're not going to respond, and I understand why. But I want you to know that I'm going to get help. Real help, not just for the financial mess Brandon left me in, but for the way I've been thinking about relationships and success and what really matters. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope someday you'll be able to think of me without anger. I stared at the message for a long time. It sounded more genuine than her previous attempts at contact, less manipulative and more reflective. Maybe she really was beginning to understand the damage she'd done, not just to our relationship but to herself. But understanding wasn't the same as fixing, and insight wasn't the same as change. Even if Neera genuinely wanted to become a better person, that didn't obligate me to be part of her journey. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Outside, the harbor was quiet, except for the gentle sound of boats shifting in their slips. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work at the marina, back to the simple satisfaction of maintaining things that mattered, back to a life measured by real accomplishments rather than social media metrics. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 3 months later, I was replacing a dock cleat when Mrs. Krantz appeared at the marina gate, carrying a plate of cookies and wearing the expression of someone with gossip to share. "Hayes, dear, do you have a minute?" I set down my tools and walked over to meet her. Mrs. Krantz had become something of a regular visitor since the night everything fell apart, always bringing food and neighborhood news in equal measure. "What's the latest, Mrs. K?" "Well, I thought you should know. That girl of yours, Neera, she's been by the house twice this week." "Has she now?" "Just driving by slowly, like she's working up the courage to stop. Yesterday, she sat in her car for about 10 minutes before driving away." I wasn't surprised. Neera had tried various forms of contact over the past few months. Texts from different numbers, messages through mutual acquaintances, even a handwritten letter that I'd thrown away unopened. Each attempt was spaced further apart than the last, suggesting she was either getting the message or running out of strategies. "She looked different," Mrs. Krantz continued. "Thinner, maybe. Not as put together as she used to be." "How do you mean?" "Well, you know how she always looked like she was about to have her picture taken? Hair perfect, makeup perfect, clothes that probably cost more than my grocery budget? She doesn't look like that anymore." I felt a flicker of something that might have been concern, but I pushed it away. Whatever struggles Neera was facing were consequences of her own choices, not my responsibility. "Anything else interesting happening in the neighborhood?" "Oh, plenty. The Hendersons are getting divorced. Apparently he's been gambling online. The new family that moved into the Blue House has 3 teenagers who think they're rock stars. And that fancy apartment complex downtown where your friend Brandon used to live, half empty now. Word is the rent was too high for what you got." Brandon Kell had disappeared from Cedar Bay shortly after his arrest, skipping bail and leaving behind a trail of unpaid bills and angry creditors. The police had issued a warrant, but he was probably running the same scam in a different city by now, targeting a new group of people who believed in his promises. "Mrs. K, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "Did you ever like Neera? I mean, really like her, not just being polite?" The older woman considered the question carefully. "She was always pleasant enough when I saw her. But Hayes, I have to say, she never seemed quite comfortable in her own skin, like she was always performing, even when there was no audience." "That's a good way to put it. Some people are like that, especially young people these days with all their social media nonsense. They get so focused on how things look that they forget to pay attention to how things feel." "And how do things feel now?" Mrs. Krantz smiled. "Peaceful. Your house feels peaceful again. I can tell from here." After she left, I finished replacing the cleat and walked out to the end of the main dock. The harbor was busy with afternoon boat traffic. Fishing vessels heading out for the evening run, pleasure boats returning from day trips, the steady rhythm of a working waterfront. Mick found me there an hour later, as he often did when his security shift ended, Contemplating the mysteries of the universe? Something like that. Mrs. K said Neera's been cruising the neighborhood again. Apparently. You think she'll actually stop and try to talk to you? Maybe. Does it matter? Mick leaned against the dock railing, studying my face. You tell me. Does it matter? I thought about the question. 3 months ago, the idea of seeing Neera again would have triggered a storm of emotions: anger, hurt, maybe even hope for reconciliation. Now, the prospect felt more like a minor inconvenience, something to be handled and moved past. No, I said finally. It doesn't matter. Good, because I've got news that might actually interest you. What kind of news? The marina's expanding. Owner wants to add 20 more slips and a new service facility. He's looking for someone to manage the whole operation. Someone like who? Someone like you, genius. Promotion, pay raise, your own crew to supervise. Interested? The offer was unexpected, but welcome. I'd been thinking lately about what came next, about building something meaningful rather than just maintaining what already existed. Very interested. Thought you might be. Interviews next week if you want it. We stood there watching the boats for a while, comfortable in the silence. The sun was starting to set, painting the water in shades of gold and orange that would have made perfect Instagram content. But there was no one here to capture it, no one trying to turn the moment into performance art. It was just beautiful for its own sake. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, I wondered if it might be another attempt from Neera, but the sender was someone I didn't recognize. Hayes, this is Jordan. I know we haven't talked since the party, but I wanted you to know that Allie and I have been thinking about what happened that night. We realized we were part of the problem, treating your relationship drama like entertainment instead of supporting you when you needed it. We're sorry about that. I showed the message to Mick, who snorted. Little late for that realization. Better late than never, I guess. You going to respond? Probably not. But it's good to know some people learned something from the whole mess. As we walked back toward the marina office, I thought about the different ways people processed difficult experiences. Some, like Brandon, doubled down on their worst impulses until reality caught up with them. Others, like Neera, seemed to cycle through denial and manipulation before, maybe, possibly, beginning to understand their role in their own problems. And then, there were people like Jordan and Allie, who participated in the drama as spectators before recognizing their own complicity in turning someone else's pain into entertainment. All of it felt very far away now, like something that had happened to a different version of myself. The man who had loved Neera, who had believed in their shared future, who had been willing to overlook red flags in favor of hope. That man felt like a stranger to me now. Mick, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you think I'm a different person than I was 6 months ago? Absolutely. You're more yourself, if that makes sense. How do you mean? 6 months ago, you were always trying to be the person Neera wanted you to be. Always adjusting, always accommodating, always walking on eggshells. Now you're just Hayes. It's a good look on you. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and a sense of contentment I hadn't felt in years. The house was quiet, but not lonely. Peaceful, but not empty. Tomorrow, I'd have the interview for the promotion. Next week, I'd start planning the marina expansion. Next month, I'd probably have to deal with another attempt from Neera to re-establish contact. But tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do, with no one to perform for and nothing to prove. My phone sat silent on the counter, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the urge to check it. Outside, the harbor settled into its evening rhythm, and the lights of Cedar Bay twinkled like promises of simple, honest tomorrows. I had everything I needed.